I recently came across Perplexity, which markets itself as an AI-powered search engine. So I was curious to play around with it and see what you can do with it and how you can build even further by using it in AI workflows. So when you open up Perplexity, it looks pretty similar to what you might find with something like ChatGPT or Claude. But the thing that I really like is it has a few extra tools here for doing research and searches, and it even gives you some searches that you could try, for example, Big Bang supercomputer simulations, and here it will give you some answers related to that search. So it's very orientated around search. So getting started, in Kestra we've got a brand new plugin for Perplexity. This has got a task called ChatCompletion that looks a little bit like this. Now if you've looked at Kestra's AI plugins before, this will feel quite familiar, where we've got the API key and the model that we want to use, and then we've got a list of messages. As you can see here from the documentation on the right, for the messages block you can add user, system, as well as assistant messages, where the idea is system is where you're telling it what you want it to do, sort of the tone, how you want it to structure the outputs and whatnot. Then you can use the assistant one for passing its own responses back to it. So when you ask future requests, it's got the context of what you asked previously and what you got from it. And then user are the typical questions you would ask, what you would typically put directly into Perplexity's chat on their website. Now, another thing that it does do, which is really nice, is it has a JSON response schema. So structured output, which is quite commonly used in the AI world. This means you can pass it a JSON schema of how you would like the output to return. And then it means it just makes it a lot easier for building AI workflows, because the data comes back nicely broken into key value pairs or however you like, so that you can then easily plug that into the next part of your workflow. Now I'm just going to use this very simple one here that's going to just ask what is Kestra. You can also tune the model too with temperature, and I believe there's also top K and top P parameters too, so if you want to be able to fine tune the type of responses, you can do that too as part of this. But if I run this now, you'll see that it's going to ask that question to the API. We'll get that back as an output that we can then use in later tasks. So we'll wait for this to run and then we'll have a look at the output. So here we can see the output returns two different outputs. We've got output text and raw response. If I press debug outputs here, we can see it's given me the information on Kestra. There are a number of different Kestras, funnily enough. We are number 2, that's the one we care about. So very cool, but we can also get the raw response too. So here you can see it's given me a nice JSON body here, and it's also the thing I really like about its output is it gives you where it gets all the search results from. So here, this is where it got information about Kestra, the orchestrator. We can also see the citations as well. So if you want those links, you can go and get those quite nicely. And then it also gives you the message back. So lots of flexibility there that you don't necessarily get with other AI models. So makes building workflows very nice. Now in my next example, I want to build a workflow that can help summarize book chapters. Now I was chatting with a colleague of mine at Kestra, and he loves to read. That's what he spends his spare time doing. And something that he started to do is when he finishes reading a chapter, he'll like to look up online for a chapter summary to make sure that he hasn't missed any context, especially if the chapter is quite complex with lots of different things. It can be good just to get a nice summary before moving on to the next chapter. And so something he sort of suggested was it'd be really helpful if I could just tell AI, this is the chapter I've read, can you give me a nice easy to read summary? And so I thought, let's see if we can build a workflow that not only will ask that as a question, because obviously you could ask that using the chat simulation like here, but what if we could turn that into a nice formatted email with the links at the bottom so you can go and find those search results so you can confirm that the AI hasn't just hallucinated and made up stuff. So let's have a look at the workflow I built to achieve this. To begin with, I've got 2 inputs at the start here. I've got book and chapter, so you can ask it what book it is you're reading and the chapter, and every time you run this, I've actually set this as a default just so I don't have to keep changing it. But then as I go through the book, I can add chapter 4, chapter 5, etc. and go like that. Then we get into the tasks. This is where we're going to, first of all, ask for our chapter summary. So part 1 is I've got a system message to basically say, you're going to summarize book chapters, do it in a clear and concise way, use a mix of paragraphs and bullet points. Then the user prompt comes in and says, this is the book I'm reading. We use those input parameters to pass that information directly to the AI prompt. And then we get a summary. So when we run this, we'll get that nice summary like we saw in the previous example as a raw response, but also as just the output text. But that's not helpful because that is just text. I want this in a HTML format that we can then plug into an email and send to ourselves. So scrolling down a little bit further, I've now got my convert to HTML task. Now, to begin with, I've got a system message here to say what to do here to make sure the HTML is formatted correctly and to make sure that it's consistent between runs. And then I've also asked it specifically to link all of those search results at the bottom. Then we follow that with a user message that will contain that expression that contains the output of raw responses from the previous task. Once we've done all of that, then we can send our email. And this is where the email is going to put the input in the subject so we can see what book it was reading and also what chapter. And then we can put the HTML content in at the bottom with an output. So if I run this now, we'll be able to get that chapter summary, convert it into HTML, and then send it as an email. So let's hear what chapter 5 has to say about the Hunger Games, and then we'll be able to see that in our inbox shortly. So it's got the chapter summary. It's now going to convert that, and we can actually go and see here. This is the chapter summary. It looks pretty good to me. And if we go into the raw text, we'll be able to see we've got a bunch of search results too, which is really, really good. And then it's sent us the email. So let's have a look at that. So here we've got our chapter summary of chapter 5. As we can see here, it's got the resources at the bottom, key points summarized, as well as a few paragraphs as well. So it's done exactly as I asked it to in a really nice way. But the key thing that I really like from Perplexity is the fact that I get all the search results in the response to that I can go and link. Just makes it really easy for being able to validate that where this information came from, because I have found that this doesn't always work, because if you end up searching something, I used Harry Potter, but there are many Harry Potter books. If you just put Harry Potter, it ends up getting some information about video games, because the video game is split into chapters. So that's another thing, that if there's a game based on the book or other content based on the book, it might find information about that, and those chapters might not line up to the book. So just factor that in too. But overall, I think this works really well, and hopefully my colleague at Kestra here will find this useful for summarizing book chapters as he gets to the end of them. Yeah, I thought this was a really cool demo, and let me know in the comments below how you want to build AI workflows. What are you building with AI workflows, and what models are you using?